Jacksonville. The child was born and couldn't sit still. 86 years later with no regret. You know that man can't sit still yet. The Great Depression couldn't get him down. He worked for his dad's store in town, collecting money in small amounts. Poor whites and blacks in their furniture accounts. Stetson Kennedy wants us all to be free. Stetson Kennedy wants us all to be free. As he'd collect, he'd talk to folks. He'd hear legends, tales, songs, and jokes. Now this fine treasure he'd record and write. He was colorblind, didn't see black and white. Writer's project for the WPA. Zora Neale Hurston, he earned his pay. Crackers and blacks, they talk for hours. It was a barefoot history, this land of flowers.
Broadcasting on WBRN Radio and the Boston Red Network, the week that was on the 5th of August 2017. The first week that was in the month of August. Nonetheless, we'll start out where we basically left off. There were a number of things. Big Jim Justice down in West Virginia decided to switch parties. We'll go to that. George Will, the grotesque party that the GOP is. I wonder about that one. They were always grotesque, but nonetheless, George Will has a column on that. Uncle Carl Rowe, we always have his feature here. He's talking about the general that is now the chief of staff at the White House and the various machinations involved with General Kelly and the White House. We also have a flowchart, I guess, for a better word, from the Washington Post of various people that are in and out of the White House and from what parts of the Republican Party and what they call the New York elite that they exist in. But firstly, we'll go to Seattle and Ms. Moon, and the latest update we have from Seattle. This is Carrie Moon. She's a progressive candidate for mayor of Seattle to succeed Mayor Ed Murray. She's extended her primary lead over Nikita Oliver, also a progressive and head of the People's Party. She has, up by about 2,000 votes after Wednesday. This has been counting, and it has increased now to roughly 2,578 votes on Thursday. But the establishment candidate, somebody named Durkin, Jeannie Durkin, she is a Hillary the Monster Clinton type candidate, has almost 19,000 votes from the primary. That doesn't really mean a lot. This is in flow out there in Seattle. So the progressives have basically till November to coalesce behind Ms. Moon, if she is in fact the candidate of the progressives, if they can decide, and to defeat Jenny Durkin there in Seattle. Now, from the Washington Post, the temperatures there, where we can go to climate change, no doubt, hot, dry, smoky, no end in sight. And this is, let's see if this is a new item here on that race. Okay, Durkin secure in mayoral race. Now this is on the 4th is a newer one here. Moon and Oliver are still close. Primary election for next mayor of Seattle has Jamie Durkin far out in front. Nikita Oliver and Carrie Moon are within 2,235 votes of each other. And not all the ballots are counted. Now, it has changed somewhat. Durkin held firm in front with 28.7%, 48,193 votes. Moon came in next with 17.38%, with 29,000. We gave that before. And Oliver at 16.5% with 26,000. We'll almost call that 27,000. It's 946 of the 463,600 registered voters for the mayoral election. King County has tallied 170,870 votes in the Friday update. About 36.8% of the turnout. King County shows about 14,000 votes left to be counted in the primary. Another update will be on the 7th. That'll be next week. Now, that's very interesting. If there are 14,000 votes left, this thing could change. There's no doubt about that. King's 5, Nicole Brand tweeted that the King County elections had shared earlier that is roughly 220,000 challenge ballots. Ballots could not be counted because of issues with signatures, so forth, and would nearly be enough to close the gap between Ms. Moon and Ms. Oliver, assuming all the ballots went to Oliver. Now, Oliver seems to think that many of those ballots may be from her supporters, as she announced ballot chasing a campaign Friday in an effort to get voters to track their ballots and make sure that they were counted. In a statement, the campaign said it's an effort was aimed at making sure it's traditionally marginal communities have their fair shot to participate in the election. There's a natural extension of this. This is a natural extension of this campaign we set out to launch back in March. That's the People's Campaign said in the statement. Just because Election Day has come and gone doesn't mean that the process is over. Counting marginalized, centering marginalized voices started with making sure that they are heard. These are people trying to participate in the political process in this campaign. The Seattle People's Party will work until the final bell to ensure that they are counted regardless of who they intend to vote for. Moon, in a statement after the ballot count, applauded the voters as supporting her, but went on to say that she supports Oliver's position and even went so far as to encourage her supporters to work with Oliver's campaign to contact voters with contested ballots. Now, this is a progressive situation here. Oliver's campaign has mobilized and inspired thousands of people, Moon said in a statement, rushing towards to claim a decisive outcome, while some ballots are in limbo, would only create distrust. I know it's going to take all of us working together to ensure that our city's future is not sold to the highest bidder. We must work together to build a strong progressive coalition because so much is at stake. Now, so this race is much in play out there. We were almost going to start this broadcast again, but we won't do that. But what we will do is make sure that you understand that this race between the two progressives, Ms. Moon and Ms. Oliver, is still very, very close. Durkin, of course, is ahead, and in her quests. Where's old Durkin? She has a 27.7%. That's less than 30% of the vote. She has 48,000. We talked about that. But if we look at the two other candidates there, they would have as much as the two progressives. So this vote has a lot of consequences. There are 463,000 registered voters for the mayoral election there, and they have tallied the election board 170,000, roughly a little over. Not even half actually, because we need 200,000 to get there. 200,000, 30 whatever, something votes. So that's it's a turnout a little below 50%, but that's not unusual. With the proper organizing, the people will get out there, and we look to people like the the People's Party to bring them out. And of course, what Ms. Moon is doing here is extraordinary in the sense that they're showing that they can indeed coalesce together behind one candidate, whatever the outcome of this is. And they can work together to promote a better city in Seattle. All right, let's move on here now to the national machinations, I guess you'd call it. A little side story, kind of break this up. This would ordinarily be in a commercial radio station break, but in Sturgis, South Dakota, this is a large motorcycle rally, they call it, a meeting of motorcyclists. It's in its 71st year, and they roughly have 500,000 people there. And now the ARP is there also at they have a booth there. AARP, this is of South Dakota, but they are focusing on veterans there at this particular episode. Now in let's see, in 2015 there was 700,000 people there, and it dates back to 1938 after the Depression. Basically, they started to move there. 8,000 8,000 people last year stopped by the ARP booth there and received free ice cream. The organization is working with Google to provide virtual reality demonstrations. Our friend Lisa Patino out in San Francisco would be happy about that. She's into virtual reality. The Fisher House Foundation has helped more than 300,000 veterans' families while their loved ones get care. So I suppose they provide housing for veterans. Anyway, we thought we would throw that piece in. On the Monday Morning Quarterback, we'll talk about DJ Trump's golf game. That's a long article in Sports Illustrated. We want to get it all, but we'll get some of it in there. Let's go to Charlotte, I always say that. I'm not sure why I always say that, but anyway, to Charleston, South Carolina. This is Big Jim Justice, a picture of him. He's 6'7" or 8 or whatever, walking into the Secretary of State's office to change his party registration. Had a news conference at the Capitol. He said he made the switch because the Democrats would not support his push for what he called tax reform. Said the Democrats wouldn't cooperate with the tax overhaul because the party that wrote the legislation is Republicans, not because of the idea itself. The people are in office. These 36 dropped the ball. I suppose he's talking about the Democrats there. But the Republicans weren't too happy about that either. He didn't mention the House of Delegates. That is their lower house by title, but there are 36 Democrats in the House of Delegates. Despite the switch, Justice is saying nothing is likely to change, raising questions of the strategy and purpose behind it. They said it was personal, and that's what the rumor is. Financial, he owes back taxes, etc. Jim isn't changing. Jim is going to be Jim, he said. Jim is still going to be the person that stands up with him for the common everyday family. In other words, that's what he says he is. Jim is going to is rock solid behind teachers, trying to help education. We talked about that last night, along with the alleged lack of cooperation from fellow Democrats. Justice said he made the change because he gave him an ear to DJ Trump. I wouldn't trust that too much. DJ Trump's double-crossed everyone that has ventured in with him. I have a relationship with the president of this country. We'll see where that one goes. Decided to switch in the party affiliation GOP 7 months into his first term. Justice said Friday that he has not received a letter of resignation from his staff or cabinet. Well, I guess they just need the job. Said he spoke with Joe Manchin. He is a senator now. He used to be the governor. Said Manchin took the news amicably. Well, we read a statement from Manchin. Manchin didn't have any more to say about it as to from him, but other people obviously do have things to say about what went on there. Congress must repair and keep the ACLU. That is the Obamacare situation there. Now, West Virginia Democrats lash out at Justice Party leadership here. This is from the staff. Former Senate President, Democratic gubernatorial Jeff Kessler called out the party's leadership. He said it never should have recruited Jim Justice, who jumped to the Republican Party. It's a time for change at the top, particularly when you have someone who embraced someone who turns on the Democratic Party, Kessler said, and some of these people on the hot seat now too. Belinda Balfour said Justice duped her. She called Justice switch a slap in the face, no doubt about that. The leadership of the West Virginia Democratic Party will continue to be committed, as we always have been, to do the best for the people of West Virginia. So there's some sniping there. It always is. Party leaders who helped recruit Justice to run for governor as a Democrat should have known better than to trust his promises of moonshots and magic carpet rides. I thought Jim Justice was a creation of the Meacham machine, and now he's turned into Frankenstein. Kessler, who lost to Justice in the primary, turned on the party that put him in power. Okay. Sean Flannery, a Democrat, said state party leadership hitched their wagon to the wrong guy. Justice, a former Republican, became a Democrat days before entering the gubernatorial race. Justice recently criticized the Democrats in the House of Delegates. Hasn't set well with House Democrats. Some expressed relief that Justice left the party. He no longer felt compelled to defend him because he was a governor who shared the same party registration. So, various comments here. Kessler said Democratic leadership became enamored by Justice because he is a billionaire, and expect him to shower down-ticket candidates with campaign donations. He called Justice a Democrat by convenience, not by conviction, who used the party after he was pursued and coaxed by party leaders. When I asked what does he stand for, nobody knew, other than he had a lot of money. Well, he does owe, I think, $4.5 million in taxes to the state of West Virginia. He got into the race. He cared about getting himself elected, and we ended up losing seats. Now he turns his back on us. A sharp stick in the eye. I'm I'm embarrassed. Well, they should be embarrassed there. Nonetheless, the rest of the week's story, let's go to the Washington, I call it rundown here, and we'll get these Washington stories in here with the machinations of DJ Trump, and we'll go. This is the Washington Post, a shrinking GOP presence in the Trump administration. We'll start, of course, if you recall, the replacement of Anthony Scaramucci. Anyway, as a communications director now, Sarah Huckabee Sanders is the communication person. And their flowchart here just cites some people that have resigned. Flynn, you know about him. He was a national security advisor. Now this H.R. McMaster is another military type, is a national security advisor. And they label these people, they call Mike Pence an establishment Republican. His previous job was the governor of Alabama. He's also an ultra-right religious nut. And Kirshner, he's a senior advisor, Trump loyalist, a New York elite campaign staffer. Ivanka Trump, the same. Kellyanne Conway, she's a conservative and a campaign staffer, establishment Republican. Bannon, the white supremacist, they call him a conservative and a staff member. He's still around there. And Sanders was a campaign staff member and a conservative. And Gary Cohn, he's from the New York, what they call elite. And Hope Hicks, a Trump loyalist, well, she looks like she's going out to Halloween here. And Keith Schindler, he's director of Oval Office Operations. He's a Trump loyalist, in other words, a lackey. And Scarvino, Dan Scarvino Jr., he's social media director, a Trump loyalist there. And this right-winger and Nazi named Stephen Miller, he is a conservative, I don't know why they call him that, and a campaign staff, another lackey senior policy advisor. He's behind the America First agenda. And let's see, Thomas Basser is an establishment Republican. And then we go to Dana Powell. She's been around. She's part of the New York elite and establishment Republican. So that's the flow chart of where they are. Not very many establishment Republicans remain. He's ousted Priebus, who led the Republican National Committee. His chief of staff replaced him with Homeland Security General Kelly. So that's the story of where those people are. And let's get to the other. Trump still has the bully's pulpit, but it's facing more challenge to his authority, no doubt about that. And they list various things. His ability to lift sanctions on Russia, he couldn't do that. So in other words, hands all tied up there. An unexpected announcement on Twitter that he would ban transgender people from the military. But the military brass said no. Too quick, DJ. He was publicly chilled for his, and we covered that. We call it the Scoutmaster. Won't go into that one. Another one of his bobbling and hobbling schemes. The next few weeks could afford the White House an opportunity to regroup with a calmer political environment expected. The Congress will be on recess for the remainder of the month, and the president's spending a couple of weeks at his golf course. So maybe we'll just use that and talk about this and do a special presentation. Who knows? Anyway, this is a potential turning point, said one Republican advisor to the administration who spoke on condition of anonymity. Now they're also out at leakers to avoid alienating the White House. It's a real change with the arrival of Kelly. Then it seems to me that the spiral down will continue, and it's hard to see what will stop it. Other Trump allies maintain that the president, who ran as an outside candidate, will ultimately be the outsider president, we suppose. And he has publicly and privately complained about the persistence of deep state 6 months into the administration, as Trump has grown more vocal in criticism of his own party. He can keep criticizing his own party, but that is his base. Among the problems, Kelly is focused on fixing the way Trump makes decisions on key issues. Good luck. Already it has had some impact as aides have taken to giving Kelly control over paperwork and advice before it reaches the president. We wonder. He knows the problems. He knows how difficult it's going to be, said Panetta, who spoke with Kelly this week. Now, I'm assuming that is Panetta, who he used to work with. More difficult will be reining in the infighting among staff members. There is a little expectation that Kelly will try to temper the impulse of the president. No, because the president will fire him too. The Congress, the willingness to defy Trump, that is the subject of this piece. Jeff Flack out in, where is he? Arizona, yeah. Frequent critic is up for re-election in 2018. He could be leaving too. Some Republicans have simply resorted to openly defying him, despite his warnings that he might be repercussions. They don't care about that. The Interior Secretary warned Lisa Murkowski, she's a senator from Alaska, and she laughed at him. John McCain does what he wanted to do. Senator John Kirsch, he's from Ohio. When he had roughly 35% approval rating, he is under active FBI investigation, special prosecutor. He can't get anything through a Republican Congress. None of this should be surprising, and John Kirsch is right about that. We talked about the Seattle hot, hazy situation there, fires burning out in Vancouver, British Columbia that are blowing in. You're having 95 plus degrees temperatures in an area that is usually 75 is too hot. The fourth straight day, Friday, smoke from British Columbia wildfires, murky haze. That's kind of like the remnants of Mount St. Helens. I used to live in Seattle. Anyway, in Seattle has now had 47 straight days without rain. That's very unusual because it used to rain every day. The mercury has been climbing steadily about a week. By Thursday, temperatures soared to 94. I remember it was 105 in Seattle. It was in the 80s. Anyway, about 17 degrees higher than normal. A city where 16% of the houses have 16. Yeah, have central air. Not unusual there. Usually, you have to use heat in Seattle at night because it drops into the low 50s, high 40s. I don't know what the nighttime lows is. My buddy that used to be a meteorologist there moved to the Weather Channel. Anyway, we'll have to check her out on Twitter and see what she has to say about this. Let me fly on here. Rube Marcus, Trump is a one-man assault on the rule of law. No doubt about that. Let me just check on our time here. Scary questions of the day. If this is how Trump reacts to a new federal grand jury being impaneled, that is one of the stories there. These grand juries, remember, they used a federal grand jury in the Watergate episode there. Judge Sirica, Maximum John, they used to call him, ended up in that scenario, and that was the end of that story right there. But once again, he demolished the significance of the Russian effort. Well, that's been going on, and this was in West Virginia, where the chants of lock her up were. That was right after Big Jim Justice gave his situation there. That slogan is empty as possible, especially with all these investigations around. And in Washington, there is an old adage that a prosecutor could literally indict a ham sandwich. And in a Democratic town like Washington, stay tuned. They'll start indicting some people. And I would not be surprised if Trump Jr., one of his siblings, is indeed indicted. And they don't have to indict Trump. They can just indict some of the people around old DJ Trump. Hallie Kasser-Jane was talking about that. Well, she called him a fascist. I think she was talking about Beauregard Session. Anyway, the party has become grotesque. This is by George Will. We'll just start a little bit of it here. Southern Gothic is a literary genre, occasionally a political style vet, like the genre, blends strangeness and irony. Consider the current primary campaign to pick a Republican nominee to replace Beauregard Sessions. In 1986, Jeffrey Beauregard Sessions III, hell of a name there, the name belonging in a steamy, bogued Ripper beach read novel about Confederate cavalry. Okay. Democrats blocked him. He was going to try to get a judgeship. He was racially insensitive. In 1996, he got even by getting elected to the Senate. 20 years later, he was the first senator to endorse DJ Trump, who carried Alabama by only 27.7 points. Beauregard Sessions, the most beloved Alabaman who is not a football coach, became DJ Trump's attorney general. Sessions is beleaguered. In other words, weak according to DJ Trump. Alabama, let's see, on August 18th, Alabama conflicted Republicans bewildered and began picking a nominee, will begin picking a nominee for him. One can achieve 50%. Luther Strange, Roy Moore, you remember him as Chief Justice there, and Mo Brooks, who is representative. Strange was the Alabama Attorney General until he was appointed by then Governor Bentley to Beauregard Sessions' seat, so he's in the Senate now. Bentley had to resign because of several scandals. Strange's office was investigating. Strange's successor as Attorney General suggested when Bentley appointed him, the state's Ethics Commission had scheduled an August 2nd hearing into charges of campaign finance violations by Strange, and it's postponed until after the election. Moore, who has twice been removed as Chief Justice, in 2003, removed. He was defiant of the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court, regarding a religious display in government buildings. Re-elected, he was suspended last year for defying the U.S. Supreme Court on same-sex marriage. Brooks is the focus of furious attacks on behalf of Strange, who ignores Moore. The attacks are financed by Washington-based PAC that none other than Old Man McCain is behind. They're the same people that attacked Marco Vegas Rubio and Ben Sasse out in Nebraska. Didn't work. They got reelected. Brooks, while he was chairman of Lion Ted Cruz's campaign in Alabama, he criticized Trump's serial adultery. I guess DJ Trump doesn't care for Brooks either. Drain the Swamp Express. Brooks was in the campaign. He supported Trump's agenda, including the potential of its most consequential items, ending of the filibuster rule. And let's see, go on here to this goofiness. Nonetheless, the way this thing is racked up now, Moore is called the Ayatollah of Alabama. Moore is leading the PAC attacks are driving Brooks voters to Moore amongst voters who say they're familiar with all three. Strange is third. So it doesn't look too good there. So anyway, they will have that, and then they'll have general election on the 12th of December. So this is as goofy as can be. In Michigan, a poll showed the rapper named Kid Rock a strong potential for a Republican Senate candidate against incumbent Debbie Stabenow. Rock said the Democrats are, because he runs, it will be a game on the mutters. Anyway, he said, This is a Northern Gothic. No, it's Republican Gothic. The grotesque becoming a norm in a national party who's dishonest, and one hopes a fatal assault on Brooks is shredding the remains of its dignity. So we had his comment in advance of Uncle Carl Rowe. We'll go to Uncle Carl Rowe. We got to get Uncle Carl, and then we'll do the baseball scores. The boot camp for presidential aides. This is John Kelly, the Marine disciplined into a chaotic White House for a few days at least. Sworn in Monday as Chief of Staff. Mr. Kelly immediately cashiered the communications director, Scaramucci, told other senior aides that they report to him, and curtailed Oval Office walk-in privileges. If he hadn't taken these actions to reduce conflict, friction, and in-runs in the West Wing, the retired general would have been neutered from the start. Now, this is Uncle Carl writing on the 3rd of August in the Wall Street Journal. But how long is this tone will endure is unclear, given DJ Trump's moods. Will Trump resist Kelly's efforts to impose order, or will Trump realize that a strong chief of staff reflects a strong president, much as James Baker's service revered Ronald Reagan's leadership? Anyway, this is no James Baker. These are methods Team Trump might use to repair the early damage to administration, some of which worked better than others. One not so promising approach would be appealing to party loyalty of congressional doing Republicans, an idea Trump raised in a recent speech to the Boy Scouts. We could use more loyalty. Well, we went over that in the Scoutmaster. Trump has been a paragon of partisan fidelity, and is hardly in a position to insist on it now. He was a registered Democrat or independent for most of his life before running for president. Some of his largest contributions went to elect Nancy Pelosi Speaker in 2006. He later said his only criticism of her performance was that she hadn't done enough to impeach G.W. Bush, whom he opposed in 2000. This is DJ Trump. In 2004, while supporting Brother John Kerry. Most congressional Republicans don't believe they owe Trump. No matter how much they welcome his victory, they may feel they pulled him into office. Not the other way around. 22 Republican senators elected last fall, only 5 trailed Trump in their states. To this shenanigans, the left-wing Daily Cause found only 34 of 241 victorious Republican congressmen didn't get more votes than DJ Trump. The absence of a close relationship between the White House and Republican congressional leaders creates another challenge. Some White House aides and outside allies have aimed to be or even oust the Republican House. Disruptive leadership. Kelly should restrain these impulses during the coming battles over tax reform, the budget, the debt ceiling, the infrastructure, possibly health care again. The drop of honesty catches more flies than a gallon of gall, as Lincoln put it. Well, Kelly's challenge to help Trump wins the support the old-fashioned way by making a substantive case that the president's policies are good for America. Well, that is not the case. This requires a strengthening of the White House policy-making apparatus. Top advisors must not only frame good decisions for the president, but should also aim him and his supporters with arguments, talking points, rebuttals, fact sheets, storylines, examples. Part of the problem here is that these so-called storylines, fact sheets, etc., would be evidence-based or factual-based, and the Trump people have taken alternative avenues, otherwise known as fake news. The president wants to persuade Congress and the American people, American voters, to back his agenda unless he makes his case consistently. Well, it's too late now because his whole campaign was about the streaming of ideas. In other words, conscience streaming. That was the whole script written for him. And if you have that type of campaign, where you are streams of consciousness, I should say, and that was scripted into the campaign. So when you hear Trump make various things, a tweet on his Twitter account, those are all pre-planned. It's not something that happens accidentally, period. But when you have that type of mechanism set in motion, see, some people believe falsely that when he makes these, it's just an impulse, he's just saying things. No, this was planned. If you read the Republican literature about the campaign, they saw that was the only reason to defeat only way, I should say, to defeat Hillary Clinton, who ran her own chaotic campaign. But the issue was, when you do stream of consciousness, you can move from issue A to B to C to D, and then come back again with X, Y, and Z. So by jumping around that way, you can use issues, you can use all sorts of flippables to move from you to them. And that's basically what is happening here when you saw the immigration being cut by 50%, the affirmative action argument that was put out there. Let me just one more thing here very quickly. African people aren't keeping Europeans out of college. Rich people are. And this is an argument here by Christina Ebo about Trump, and the New York Times article about suing colleges on affirmative action. A single complaint involving Asian American. Well, there's a little different situation there. But if we look, elite colleges serve as stepping stones into politics, finance, and law. Silicon Valley higher education tends to follow. 80% of the top students who apply are accepted into at least one elite school, if not their first choice. But measurement that historically disadvantaged population to take advantage of some opportunities are needlessly characterized as zero sum. At 38 top colleges in the U.S., most students come from the top 1%. Then the bottom 60% are really leveling the admission playing field, assuming the Trump thing, focus on the fringe campaign against affirmative action, does this now of addressing inequalities in K through 12, as in West Virginia. It's not going to happen, period. Property tax-based funding for schools and a curiously strained allocation of talented teachers. In Louisiana, for instance, a student in the poorest schools is almost 3 times as likely to be taught by an ineffective teacher as a student in a wealthy school district. In Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Georgetown, Stanford, the acceptance rate for legacy applications as people with alumni is 2 to 3 times higher than general admission. That has always happened. Now, at universities like Oxford and Cambridge, they freed up spots by not dealing with legacy applicants, but that will not happen here. So not only do you have alumni that are entering in, even to lesser universities, they tend to be there, and people with financial means or people that know people with the necessary wherewithal to get there. Let's do the sports and end this up. Well, we pretty much covered the week from Seattle to Washington, the machinations of DJ Trump, and we're living a little bit over here, but we'll try to get over here and get it done, we hope. As long as we can find the sports broadcast here. Oh, here we go. The scores. Nonetheless, Mr. Darvish, Japanese player, about 30 years old, is now with the LA Dodgers, and he won his first game. But nonetheless, the Nationals were in Wrigley Field, 4-2 over the Cubs. The Cardinals were in Cincy. What did they call? Reds 3-2 in that contest. The Tigers were in Camden Yard. Tigers 5-2. The Padres were at the Pirates in Pittsburgh. Pirates 10-6. The Yankees were in Cleveland. Cleveland 7-2. In 11, the White Sox and Red Sox in Boston. 3-2 was the score. Red Sox there. The Dodgers, this is a game we talked about. They shut out the Mets in New York. And that was Mr. Darvish was the winner there. The Dodgers had 7 hits, no errors, and the Mets 4 hits, no errors. The Brewers and Rays in Florida. Brewers are 2-0. The Brewers are back winning again. So that race is very close. I think maybe the Cubs had a half game on the Brewers. The Brewers may be back in front again. We'll do that on the Monday morning quarterback also. The Marlins were in Atlanta. Atlanta 5-3 over the Marlins. The Rangers and Twins in Minnesota, 8-4 was the score there. Twins. Blue Jays and Astros in Houston. It was all Astros. The Astros are back in form again. 16-7 was the score. The Astros had 18 hits, and the Blue Jays 10 hits. The Mariners and Royals in Kansas City. Mariners 5-2 in that contest. The Mariners starting to win some games. The Phillies and Rockies out in Denver. Rockies 4-3. Close contest there. Phillies had 10 hits. The Rockies had 7 hits. They both had no errors. The Athletics and Angels. The Angels pulled that one out down in Southern California, 8-6 there. The Angels had 13 hits and 1 error. And the Athletics had 6 hits and 2 errors. The D-backs and Giants, a game we tuned into in San Francisco. The D-backs pulled that out 2-1. They had 6 hits, no errors, and the Giants 3 hits and no errors there. Mr. Bumgardner, after his rehabilitation, he was out for 3 months, ended up the loser in this game. Bandy was the winner. Yeah, Bandy. Hadn't heard of Mr. Bandy, but again, the D-backs are on the roll. They're on the roll to try to get to the as one of the playoff teams. This will do it for us. We'll talk to you on the Monday morning quarterback on Monday morning. We also have an open source report coming up. We have one that we did several days ago, Privacy and Virtual Private Networks, inspired by Chinese and Russian governments, but also in the U.S., the various Google's, Facebook's, etc., and their violations of privacy. We talk about that and how to set up a virtual private server, how to set up one of these services out of a router. That was the Asus router, and also how to just use one of the many services, and there were several of those that were recommended that one could use, and also Tor, T-O-R, the Tor browser. You can use that also for anonymity. Those are some of the things there. And Numbers Man, that is our macroeconomics program. New jobs numbers out, roughly I think 220,000 jobs were created in July. So we'll talk about that and what will the Fed do what will happen with quantitative easing, etc., some of the things. All that from WBRN Radio in Boston and on the Boston Red Network. Have a good weekend, everyone. Stay cool if you're in Seattle and some other parts of the country, like Chicago, are usually cool.